Ahoy, rink rats and Seattle Kraken fans. Today is Thursday, October 21st, 2021, and welcome to Season 1, Episode 6 of the Rink.com's Kraken Hostile Seattle Rinkcast, live from the Puck Hockey Studios. Puck Hockey, our founding sponsors. Make sure you go visit them. You can get some rink gear there. You can get some metal / hockey themed stuff there. It's good stuff, good quality stuff. All your favorite bands are there, and they have the colors of like my example before was they have a jersey that's in the Kraken colors that has Alice in Chains logo on the front. Real cool, nice little collaboration of the Seattle team and the Seattle band. Cool stuff. So anyway, I am your host, Jeff Osborn.
It's Mr. Osborn,
aka Gatekeeper and Puck and Hustle on Twitter. And today we have Kyle Pereira from Last Word on Puck. He is at Pereira_report on Twitter. You are a scout and a prospect guru, so I thought it would be a good time to have you on now that the season's rolling and people are, with the Kraken, people are starting to see some of these younger guys. They're going to see guys moving up, moving down, and you're going to see also news about, Matty Bernier, or Matty Beniers, but and stuff like that. So, yeah. Kyle, let us know. Give us the not the 10-cent. Give us the $1 of Kyle Pereira.
So yeah, you pretty much explained it. I'm a scout for Last Word on Hockey. Recently, I've been doing a lot of player development stuff, so focusing on like past drafts, trying to find patterns. That's something you'll find on my Twitter account more recently. Something I've been working on, a lot of research going into that. But again, the 2022 NHL draft class, they're starting their seasons. Juniors are back, CHL's back, OHL's back. The USHL's back, which is what I'm going to be focusing on a lot this season. So I'm going to be more geared towards USHL. So if you're interested in some of the North American skaters, specifically the USHL guys, check me out on Twitter because, like I said, I'm tracking analytics and different data throughout the year for the USHL. But draft rankings were released, my first one for the 2022 class. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've been up to recently. So hopefully you guys will check it out and like what you see and give me a follow.
Awesome. Thanks for making the time. I know you kind of reached out to me before and said that, hey, if you're ever looking for a guest, like I'm your guy. So I appreciate you kind of reaching out and, just saying, hey, I've got something that you guys might be interested in. So
yeah. Hey, Kat, how's it going?
I love talking hockey. So once I saw it, it was a while back, I think right when Seattle had the expansion draft or around that time when your accounts followed me, saw one of my tweets, a bunch of the accounts retweeted it. And so I figured, hey, you guys have a podcast. I love talking hockey. Might as well. It's worth it to reach out and maybe land something with you guys. So thought it was awesome that you guys got back in touch with me.
Yeah, I really appreciate you reaching out because that's what I'm finding out about the Seattle thing is like we're trying to now build a fan base, trying to build a community for the Seattle Kraken, and it's a little bit it's kind of piecemeal here outside. We got little we're finding new accounts every day, like we covering other teams. Like there's accounts that have been there forever. Like you get the new ones that pop up, but for the most part, there's a huge fan base and community already built. That's been built for years. Now with this, it's like brand new. Like this, I brought this up online and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but like everyone freaking out about what the Kraken record is right now. It's like, guys, this team did not exist in June. There were no players on their roster. They literally picked a whole team and threw them all out on the ice and then sent them out on the road before they played any home games because the preseason, they didn't have any home games. They had games in Washington, but they weren't technically home games. So it's like, we're still working on this. We're still building this. Like, let's be patient. Let's work on it. Let's be supportive of each other. Cause that's what I found out is, in the Blackhawks fan base and some of the other fan base, it started to get real toxic.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like a lot of people kind of got misguided with Vegas's success, that they were kind of overestimating the Kraken a little bit. And now it's kind of brewed some bad blood a little bit. So Yeah, I mean, not every expansion team is going to be the Vegas Golden Knights, and I think people need to understand that. They
Yeah.
just had a lot of luck go their way with dumb general manager moves. So
Yeah. So now that I brought it up, let's talk a little bit. Let's get right kind of into what's going on with the Kraken. They're 1-3-1. They've played more games than anybody in the NHL right now.
yeah,
So they've got 5 games. The next, of course, is 4 and 3, whatever. But they've got the most amount of games. So they've done, and they've been on the road. So they've been playing a lot of hockey, and you might think they're robots. You might think, that it doesn't affect them, but playing on the road, there's a lot more pieces to it. And you're on buses, you're in hotels, you're in planes, you're weird schedules. And if anyone goes and reads Ryan Clark's piece on like the first road trip, there was just so much stuff that happened to them because they're new. They're still learning. They're still getting this together from the top of the organization down to the players. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of drama going on. So it's like, let's not freak the hell out just yet.
yeah,
I mean, the way I said it is,
that guy needs to chill out.
because, I mean, I'm the first guy to jump all over the Blackhawks, and because they've been around for a while. They made a lot of moves. They've been, there's a whole trend going on and all this stuff. But with Seattle, there's no trend. They just started playing. The coach is still getting used to the players. He's still learning what he's got. No training camp, no 2-week or 3-week training camp is going to get you ready for what you're going to need for the 82 season grind or the 82 game season grind. So it's like, let's just chill out a little bit. Let's just let this settle. Let them play some home games. They got a home stand, and then we can maybe start freaking out a little bit. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, like I said earlier, not every expansion team is going to be like Vegas. I think this is kind of the start I was sort of anticipating from the Kraken. Not to say that I expected them to be like a couple of these games they've looked real bad. Not to say that I expected them to look that bad on occasion, but they're an expansion team. This team's new. They've never, for the most part, these guys have never played with each other at any point in their careers. They're learning a new system, a new head coach. And it's going to take some time for them to really start to gel. And honestly, again, this start doesn't really surprise me in the slightest. And like you said, it's been all road games. They've played the most games out of all the NHL teams thus far. And it's a really tough schedule. And they're coming off a back-to-back too. They get a couple days off, obviously. They don't play again until Saturday against Vancouver. So few days off, maybe this will get them on the right headspace, on the right track, give them a little bit more, I guess, momentum heading into Vancouver now that they get a chance to kind of settle down. But yeah, it's a new team, new system, new teammates. They need to build chemistry. You can't rush into a season with all of those all those things that are intangibles and expect them to put up a winning record right out of the gate. So I think right now the Kraken still look promising. They have a lot of young guys on their roster. One of my favorite players, Yanni Gord, he still hasn't played yet. He's been out. So it's only a matter
He actually
of time
played
before...
the first game the other night.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. There you go.
Yeah. No, you're good. I was
So,
going
yeah.
to bring that up later. Yeah. He finally come back. He came back early, but he's only played one game and they threw him
Exactly.
right into first line center.
Yeah. So you're still gonna get players coming in. They're still tinkering with the roster. The head coach is still trying to figure out the players that he has. It's gonna be a little bit of time. You got to be patient with the team, but they do have good players, and maybe they can sneak into the playoffs. They're in a weak division, so really, I think the key is just being patient for the Kraken early to start the season.
Yeah. I mean, I've been seeing everyone freaking out about Dave Hackstall already. I'm like, I'm not the biggest Dave Hackstall fan in the world. Like, I thought they could have went in, a bunch of other directions. I like the dude from Sweden that does the Swedish national team. I forget his name off the top of my head.
I know who you're talking about, but I can't think of his name
With
either.
the great beard and like I wanted that dude. Like, I thought that he would be a cool guy, a nice progressive, like it's a European guy. But he's got a pretty good pedigree. I wanted him. I thought he'd be good. I've heard some things, saying that, he's got his favorites and he's got his pets, but so does every coach.
Right.
But they decided they wanted to go with a guy who had some experience and so be it. I'm not going to, I did the same thing with Jeremy Colleton when he started. Like, I didn't think he was going to be very good. I was not a fan of him, but I said, give him a chance. Like, just Let's see what he is. Now, 4 years down the road, of course, it looks like a disaster. But with Hatchlings, you got 5 games. You're 5 games into the season. He's still learning what his roster is gonna be, what his defensive pairings are gonna be, what he's gonna do with goaltending and stuff. So it's like, and right now I'm gonna, I'm gonna kind of shift gear just a little bit to like injuries. Like Geeky is hurt right now. I didn't see how he got hurt. It just all of a sudden, I think it was like a bad, or you know what? It was a shoulder. I know what it was. The other night he got a shoulder into like the jaw. So he's day to day. But Blackwell, he's got no timetable for a return. Not that he's going to be a big addition, but the one that I like, I completely forgot this guy was on a team, and I kind of like the guy is Kyle Youngcrock.
Yeah,
I think he's like a good, third line, like penalty killer. And like, I think he's a good, responsible player that would be good to be out there on the ice, but he's not even out on the ice. And up until last game, they didn't have Janicki either. So they were missing 2 pretty decent players that could be important, especially in special team situations. They were missing those guys. I don't know, man. They don't have the robust organization full of prospects. They don't have an AHL team full of their prospects. They've got a handful of prospects. So they're working with, what they're working with is pretty thin already. So they need to just, work this out. Hope that injuries don't decimate them. They're gonna find, a lot of these guys are gonna find. I know a lot of these guys, like with Vegas, are thinking in the back of their head, like, my team didn't protect me, like Mark Giordano, and a lot of these guys, my team didn't protect me, so I've got to show these guys. I don't expect them, and no one should expect them to do what Vegas did, because that was an anomaly. That is not going to happen again. No matter what you did, no matter what they did in the expansion draft, no matter what they did in anything else, it wasn't going to happen again. It would be nice, but the likelihood of that happening was just nothing. So it's like, just relax. Let's just chill out. Let's see how this rides out. Give him 20 games, and then if you want to start getting worried, then get worried. Because even if they don't make the playoffs, it's not a failure. I mean, they got a team. As long as they're competitive, that's what you want in the first year.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, like you said, Blackwell was a guy that I actually kind of really liked for the Rangers, bottom 6 center. He brings a lot to the table as well, and not having him to start the year. Granted, you don't know how he's going to play with new teammates and a new coach, so there's no way of possibly knowing if he'll actually work out for the Kraken or not. Which is why you have to preach patience with this team, because some players might not be good on their former teams, and you're kind of like, oh, why are we playing him tonight? You don't know if he's going to work out or not. But to go back to Blackwell, he's a really solid depth center, in my opinion. I think he could bring a lot of value to the Kraken bottom 6 once he's healthy. And that's another thing. When he comes back, he's going to provide some value, hopefully, if all things work out with a new coach and new line mates. And same thing, Kyle Youngcroak is, I think, one of the more underrated players. When he was with Nashville, I really liked his game. And I genuinely believe with the Kraken, he could be a top 6 guy for them that plays a really important role in the defensive zone. Kind of similar. To talk about Yanni Gourde when he was playing with Tampa, he could provide that sort of value of being like a matchup nightmare for teams if he's paired with the right teammates and develops the right chemistry and works out well with the head coaching. I think Kyle Youngcroak could be a really big piece for the Seattle Kraken once he's healthy. But again, it's once he's healthy. And the fact that they started the season without Yanni Gourde up until the last game, without Blackwell, without Youngcroak, it's really impressive that they've been able to kind of get the win against Nashville, which isn't really a bad team either. To be able to get that first win, it took a lot of adversity, but they made it. They did it, and it's only a matter of time before they start putting together win streaks of 3 or 4 games and start to really show what kind of talent they have.
Yeah, someone who I always get Yarncroc kind of mixed up with a little bit is Mathias Yanmark. I've seen a lot of him because, of course, I'm in Chicago, so I saw a lot of him last year. And the guy, he surprised everybody. But he was a good, solid 2-way player. And then he scored some goals, and he ended up getting the Blackhawks, a draft pick or whatever at the deadline. But he was those kind of players that you want in the middle 6 of your lineup to do the dirty work, to do the penalty killing, to do that stuff, because you don't want all your first line players playing penalty kill the entire
Right.
game, especially with what's been going on. I mean, they've had a lot of penalties and they've had a ton of fights, which is strange too, because I didn't expect that out of them. But so yeah. Anyway, talking about the stats a little bit, I pulled a couple of stats from National Stat Trick, and their expected goals for they're 27th in the league right now, which is bad. That's just bad. You don't want to be in the bottom third of the league for anything. And their PDO, which, you know, kind of throws a little bit of luck, and there's really no grand that you can't look at the number and say this is exactly what's wrong. But their PDO, they're 30th in the league, and they should be higher than that. You know, you should be getting better, you know, some guys with higher shooting percentages, some better save percentages and things like that to bring that PDO up. Because right now, a lot of their metrics are just bottom of the league right now. So you're going to have losses. You're going to have 3 losses when your metrics are like that.
Yeah.
So,
And PDO being low, again, I like to talk about PDO as luck quantified. It's not so much just luck, but it definitely plays a part because it's basically bad luck. And if you rank that low, really it tells us, all right, they're doing things right. They're just not getting the results yet. And so again, like I was to go back on that whole patience is key with the Kraken. They're doing things right. It's only a matter of time before everything starts clicking, and it's a matter of gaining chemistry, learning the coach's system, and it's just going to piece together slowly throughout the year. And depending on how quickly they can piece it together, like I said, they could be a playoff team. So again, it's just patience and waiting for the results to start to come to fruition because they are doing the right things. It's just a matter of time before it just all starts coming together for them.
right. So, a little bit of news with the Kraken. Since the last time we got together, Dennis Schalowski, defenseman, who's picked from the Red Wings, was put on waivers to be sent down to Charlotte. He was picked off waivers by the Capitals, so he's no longer in the system. And Alex, was it Barbolet?
Yeah.
Barbolet. I know you because you're an expert on everything Lightning. So Barbolet was actually picked up on waivers from the Lightning, and he actually played in his first game that night or the next day. So and he got an assist too. So
Yeah.
I don't know much about him, but he's actually on waivers today, which we were kind of talking in the pre-chat. I thought the rule still was, and this was a rule before, if you picked a player off of waivers, they had to stay on your active roster or, you know, on your NHL roster for 30 days before you could then put them on waivers again and send them down. I don't think that rule is, you know, obviously if he's on waivers now, that rule isn't still around, but
Right.
I don't know that anyone's really gone into depth about this. What could the Kraken fans expect if he hangs around from Alex Barbolet?
So Barbolet is one of the more interesting prospects, I would say. So he went undrafted. The Lightning were able to scoop him up as an undrafted free agent 3 years ago now. And his first AHL season, he was an AHL All-Star, one of the best rookies, if not the best rookie. You could even argue he was the best rookie in the AHL that season. He followed that up another season in the AHL, another AHL All-Star appearance. He's one of those guys that has a lot of offensive potential if put in the right situations. The problem with Barbolet is he's undersized, so he doesn't have a whole lot of strength. He doesn't have a whole lot of just an ability to win puck battles is where he struggles because of his lack of size. And his skating ability is average. You know, that's one of the biggest concerns is he's on the smaller side and he's not a very great skater, and that limits him drastically. It's the reason why he went undrafted. It's not, oh, there were other parts of his game that wasn't good enough. No, the big reason, and probably the biggest reason, and the reason he went undrafted was his not so great skating ability paired with his lack of size. But when he came over to AHL Syracuse, he was put into a top 6 role, and he thrived because he has immense offensive potential. His playmaking, you saw it in the first game with Seattle. He made a fantastic play for his first point with the Kraken. Fantastic play. His shooting ability is really solid too. He's a dual threat in the offensive zone. He's one of those guys that if you play him in the right positions, he will put up points for your team. And in the 15 games or so that he played with Tampa last season in the NHL, he was played in like a middle six role, bottom six role. He wasn't put into very many offensive zone situations. And that kind of was the reason why he struggled a bit at the NHL level. And I feel like he cannot play bottom 6 minutes. If you put him on the third line, he's not going to have success because the third line largely is the energy line. They play physical. They play strong defensive zone minutes. And
Mhm.
Barry-Boulet's good in the defensive zone. Don't get me wrong. He's actually really good in the defensive zone. If you look at his metrics, he was one of the better defensive zone players for the Lightning. He even played a little bit on the penalty kill in his short stint with the Lightning. So he's not a bad defensive zone player by any means. But he can't play in a third line role. You have to put him in a top six role. You can play him on the penalty kill because he's still going to give you value there. But he's just not a guy that you deploy defensively and only defensively, or deploy in the third line to bring energy and physicality. That's just not his game. And the fourth line especially, that's like the physical line as well. It's like he won't be able to find success in those situations with a lack of minutes because his game is offensive zone ability, playmaking ability, shooting ability. And he wasn't going to have that role with the Lightning, which is part of the reason why I feel like he was sent on waivers. Obviously, again, claimed by Seattle. He was given some minutes up in Seattle. Again, flashed that one assist, looked good in that game. And then ultimately, I'm not sure what happened in such a short period of time, putting out, again, a flashy play to get his first assist. And then next thing you know, he's on waivers. Kind of confused. But if he stays to the Kraken, I can assure you they're the right system. It's a new team. There's a lot of roster openings. It's only a matter of time if he sticks around that he'll crack into the top six. So he has a lot of promise, a lot of untapped offensive potential. He's a guy that a lot of NHL teams should be interested in if it's not for his lack of size. So, really promising player in Barry-Boulet.
He'll crack in the top six.
Can confirm.
I know, bad dad joke. All right, Dennis Schalowski. What do you know about Dennis Schalowski? I mean, what they lost out of Dennis Schalowski. You don't have to go into detail, but just kind of a, because fans didn't get to see a lot of him.
Yeah, Schalowski was a guy. He had a lot of high upside with Detroit when he was initially drafted. A lot of promise. They really liked him when they took him. I was really high on him as well. When I saw him, he looked like a guy that could easily be a top four defenseman along the way. But development didn't really go so well in Detroit. Kind of fell out of favor there. A lot of prospects like Moritz Seider and a few others jumped him on the depth chart. And the fact that he didn't, make the Seattle Kraken roster kind of says all you really need to know. Schalowski's a guy that hasn't really panned out all that well, whether, it was Detroit's player development fault. They just didn't put him in the right situations, or he just lost confidence because of a lack of success and the fact that he wasn't getting into the NHL as quickly as he maybe hoped he would. I still think Schalowski has some potential. I still think there's an NHL defenseman in him, but he just struggled a lot early on in his pro career, especially at the NHL level when he did play for Detroit. He just struggled a lot. And it could be because Detroit was just not a good team. Or it could be, again, he just wasn't put in the right position. So it is a bit unfortunate. You never want to see a guy struggle, especially a guy like me being a scout. I'm always rooting for these prospects, whether I like them or not. I'm always rooting for them to do well, and to see him kind of struggle the way he did, it's unfortunate. And at the end of the day, I don't think the Kraken are losing a whole lot. I think that's just kind of how it is and how it's kind of made its way to be, unfortunately, for Schalowski. So again, I wish him the best of luck wherever he ends up playing, whether it's with Washington, I believe you said is the team that claimed him. Yeah. Whether it's with Washington or somewhere else, I wish him the best of luck, and hopefully he pans out. But early on, he doesn't look great. I don't think the Kraken lost out on much.
Yeah, there was like 7 or 8 people ahead of him on the depth chart. So sure, he would have been good if an injury pops up, but they've also got some other people in the system too that, like Fleury's brother and stuff like that, that they've got guys in the system that can, a couple other defensemen here. Let me see. I'm trying to look here. Connor Carrick could come up. Gustav Olsen could come up, or Cale Fleury could come up if they had or, they could pick another guy off waivers too, because there's going to be waivers. For sure. So
Carson Torrinsky is another guy that could be called up for the Kraken too. He's a guy that I personally really like Torrinsky, but sorry, he's not a defenseman. My bad. I apologize.
No, that's fine.
I listed him with the defenseman for some reason.
No,
But
we'll
yeah.
talk about him too. So anyway, now we've talked about we've kind of talked about all the stuff that's happened recently. But I think right now, to me, the biggest problem has now been the goaltenders. They have struggled. Their high danger save percentage is 27th in the league. They're at like 73%, almost 74%. They're 30th in team save percentage, 86 or 860, which is almost 861, which is not good at all. You don't want a team save percentage below like 910 tops.
Yeah.
Maybe in the mid nines you might be able to get away with, but 860 is just horrible. And it shows because they're 30th in the league on that. And then, so here I also brought some numbers here. Philip Grubauer is 5-on-5 save percentage, 859. He's 50th out of 53 goalies that have played already this year. His goals saved above average is minus 5.27, which is 51st in the league out of 53 goalies. So he's worse than almost every goalie in the league. The only goalies that are playing worse than pretty much all the Kraken goalies right now are Marc-Andre Fleury and Carter Hutton. Now let's go back. I'm going to pull back just a little bit here. Chris Drieger, he's 51st in 5-on-5 save percentage with an 80% save percentage, which is not good at all.
Yeah.
And then his goal saved above average is actually a little better than the other two goalies. It's minus 0.60, which is 41st in the league. I was surprised by that, but that's just kind of the way it is. And then you have Joey Decord, who was brought up because Drieger got hurt. His 5-on-5 save percentage is 880. He's 47th in the league, so he's the best as far as 5-on-5 save percentage goes. And his goal save above average he's 45th in the league at a minus 1.02. So, they're clearly at the bottom of the league. I thought their goaltending was going to be one of their strengths, but they've come out of the box and have not played well at all in net, and when their team has really needed it. What do you think?
So goaltending is one of those things. It's
voodoo. It's voodoo.
Yeah, it's definitely the hardest position to gauge what exactly is going on with goaltenders. So you have to kind of look at history if it's available to you. And I can tell you, Philippe Grubauer, he's not going to continue playing at this kind of poor level. Grubauer, then again, he did play for a really solid Colorado Avalanche team, which definitely helped him in the long run. But Grubauer is one of those guys where he's a lot better than what he's shown so far. But one of the biggest things and this goes for all of the Kraken goaltenders, goalies communicate a lot on the ice with their defensemen. You should know that. You said before we started, you're a goalie.
I am a loudmouth goalie. I am always over talking to my defenseman. So yes, I agree.
Yeah. And so, that line of communication, he was with Colorado for a few years. Their defensemen didn't really change all that often. They were fortunate enough to keep a lot of the guys, Sam Girard, Cale Makar, Eric Johnson, all those guys really stuck together in Grubauer's time. So he had a lot of time to develop chemistry with his defenders. He knew the system that the Colorado Avalanche played. So it could be a combination of things right out of the gate where, he doesn't have the chemistry with his defensemen. Communication could be off to start the season. The fact that they're tinkering with lines, still trying to figure out different pairings, still trying to figure out different, I guess, what's the right word for this? Different ways to defend, I guess. That's the best way I can kind of put it to kind of fit the style of defenders that they have. So for Grubauer, it could be, or for, again, all the Kraken goaltenders, it could be lack of communication with defenders, lack of chemistry with the defenders, still not really knowing the defensive zone structure all that well because they're with a new team, a new head coach. It could be all of those things combined, kind of limiting the Kraken goaltenders to this point in terms of success. So again, I think it's the same thing with the rest of the roster. Once they grow acclimated to the roster, their teammates, Once they get used to the coaching style and all of that, they should get right back to where they're expected to be. I don't think the Kraken should worry too much about their goaltenders yet. Obviously, a month into the season, if they're still struggling, that's when the concern should arise. But I think early on, it's too early to be worried about, any of those goalies.
Yeah, cool. Now, as everyone's going to see, my video is frozen, but my audio should be okay. So I apologize for that. But anyway, so yeah, as far as goalies go, I pretty much agree with everything you said. Grubauer, he's a pretty good goalie. I mean, he was a Vezina finalist last year.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. So, he's going to find his way, and with guys like Mark Giordano and Adam Larson. I mean, these guys are veteran defensemen. These guys know what they're doing. They've been around a while. They're going to help. They're going to start talking more. Jamie Alexiak. They're all good, well-seasoned NHL defensemen. They're going to work this out. They're going to work it out a little bit. The guy who's kind of worried me a little bit is Drieger. I was kind of impressed with what I saw with him in Florida last year. But I do also want to say that I've always been very cautious about these goalies who are kind of the 1B goalies, and they play behind another goalie and they do very well. A prime example, Scott Darling.
Yep.
For a while, Cam Talbot was that guy. Like they play really good behind a good goalie, but when you throw them in there and they become the guy, that could be a problem. So I was kind of worried about that when Drieger came over. I'm like, you're gonna put all your eggs in your basket with Chris Drieger. While he had a good year last year and everything, do you really want to throw him behind an expansion team? And then, and say, well, this is it. And if you can't save us, nobody can, Luke Skywalker. Like, I don't know that, I like him. I like him as a backup and stuff, but to move on a little bit, like he's not played well. He didn't play well in the preseason and he didn't play well in the regular season. And then he got hurt. Now you can't fault him for getting hurt. That's not his fault, but he was healthy and he wasn't playing well.
Right. And
they're going to need both goalies to play well, or all three goalies to play well, for them to have success this year. They can't hit. Their goalie needs to be one of their strong points. It can't be their weakness.
Yeah.
And Drieger worries me. He really does. Like that he's now come out so, maybe he was a lot like Scott Darling, like I mentioned earlier. He could have been a product of Joel Quenneville's system. It's very possible that could have been, and I've seen that happen to several goalies, but most notably Scott Darling. He went to Carolina and he immediately was awful.
Yeah.
But so, hopefully he works it out. I'm still, I'm going to say I'm concerned about what I've seen, but I'm really hoping he does work it out. Now, let's get to your guy, Joey Decord.
Yeah, I was gonna bring him up when you started talking about your concerns for Drieger. Before this started, I was posting, hey guys, I'm gonna be going live. I was kind of promoting it, showing it to my friends to see, all right, check me out and everything like that. So I asked, just out of curiosity, if anyone had any questions, and my friend Jeremy, who said he was watching. Hopefully he's watching for this little shout out, I guess. Yeah, he asked me, he said, so Joey Dackard, legend, king, or god? And I said, all right, well, I'll make sure to throw that in there. So I know a lot of people, my friend Jeremy he's a Bruins fan. I'm in Massachusetts and he's a Bruins fan. So, but he's been wearing a lot of Ottawa Senators stuff recently, so he loves Joey Dackard, and he wanted to make that apparent. And he was really excited about Joey Dackard when he got taken by Seattle. He was kind of upset about it based on what he's been saying. So, but yeah, Joey Dackard's one of those goalies that throughout his career, he's always posted fairly solid numbers. And Ottawa's not exactly a very good team. So the fact that he was posting solid numbers is really good for a young goalie. And then in Seattle's case, he's the only goalie above a 900 save percentage, I believe. Granted, he's only played one game, but if I'm not mistaken, I think he has a 906 save percentage in that one game that he played. So for him to step in to an entirely new team that's trying to still find its identity, trying to find the right schemes, try to find the right defensive zone structure, the right pairings, the right chemistry, and all of that, and to play fairly well compared to the other Kraken goaltenders, there's a lot of promise there. He's still 25 years old. Goalies really don't truly break out until around this age, 25, 26 years old. Unless you obviously have the outlier like a Vasilevsky or a Hellebuck where they break out a little bit sooner than that. But for the most part, goalies break out at 24, 25, 26 years old, that sort of time frame. So I think the Kraken really got a steal in Joey Dackard. I've always been a fan of him. I've always pushed for him in Ottawa. I don't know why he didn't get maybe a little bit of a bigger role there in Ottawa, especially, Matt Murray's not exactly a great goaltender out there either.
Anton Forsberg either. He's the one right now. I mean, he's playing well right now, but I've seen a lot of Anton Forsberg, and that guy does not impress me at all.
Yeah, so it's always, kind of confused me why Joey Dackard was never really given a bigger opportunity in Ottawa. So I think the Kraken, if things don't go right with Drieger, you can always lean on Dackard because, seems based on history, based on his statistics and everything, looking at his numbers, he's always been really solid everywhere he's gone throughout his entire career, from juniors up to the AHL and NHL. So I'm really impressed by him. I think he's got a promising future ahead of him. This could be the year he breaks out, and who knows, maybe he could end up being the starter for Seattle at the end of the year, although that is a bit of a stretch. But like you said, they need both or all three of their goalies to play well, and maybe that goalie could be Joey Dackard for them. So time will tell.
Texas size 10-4.
Yeah, I was glad to actually. I was glad they picked him. I read good things about him. I'd never seen him play, but I had read a lot of good things about him. So it's nice to have that guy. Unfortunately, you've got two goalies with pretty decent contracts that are kind of in the way right now. So if Drieger stays hurt, sure, he's probably gonna Dackard. It's Dackard, right? It's not Decord.
I don't honestly. It might be. I don't really know. I
your
call
guess is as good as mine. I've butchered names before, and this won't be the last time. I'm just guessing here. But Joey Decord or Dackard, however you want to say it. I think he could be a good backup for right now, and he may be the goalie of the future. You never know. But it's nice to have a guy in the system. They picked a guy in the draft, but he was like 7th round pick. Like I know Dackard was a late round pick. I think he was a 7th round pick, and I know it can happen, but the chances that a 7th round goalie is going to turn into something is not likely, not very likely at all.
Right. So,
all right. Well, anyway, let's get to the grand thing. Let's give you a little bit of time to shine here. So we're going to move on. We're going to move on to prospects, and we're not just going to talk about, prospects that are in college or junior or whatever like that. We're going to talk about, because this team's pretty new and there's young players that are on the team. So, we're going to kind of roll it all the way back to the beginning. We're kind of talking about players that were on the roster and players that impressed you and things like that. Looking through their forwards and their defense of their NHL team, there's clearly some younger guys in here towards the bottom. So, there's a couple, there's Barbalay, and there's Nathan Bastian, and there's Morgan Geekie, who are in their early 20s. And then you've got, for defensemen, you've got William Borgen, Jeremy Lauzon. Those guys are young guys too. So, but even in the middle, even in the creamy middle of the pack, what are some guys that you thought maybe were steals that were kind of under the radar that that Kraken fans should really keep an eye on, of maybe stepping up this year and not being that obscure person, but being a major player on this team?
I think the favorite right now is Morgan Geekie. I know he's gotten a lot of momentum in terms of
the Geekie squad.
Yeah, in terms of popularity. So I think he's the favorite one right now. He's just looked really good. He really has. He has a lot of promise. Do I think he'll be like a solid top 6 guy right away? Probably not. They have Yanni Gord who plays center. They have Jared McCann, who's another young guy that's really, really solid. And I think he's a guy that they could really use stepping up and having a real breakout season. He did really well with Pittsburgh the last couple of seasons, and he's ready to take that next step. I believe he's another young guy to pay attention to for Kraken fans. He's a guy who could end up being a number 1 center for the team if Yanni Gord doesn't work out in that role. Gord also can swing to the wing. He had a lot of experience playing on either wing in Tampa, so he's very versatile in that way. So McCann can jump up to the number 1 center. Morgan Geekie, like I said, I really like him. He's shown a lot of promise early on with the Kraken. He could maybe be that number 2 center. So I think McCann and Geekie are the 2 big ones in terms of young guys for the Kraken. And on defense, Jeremy Lauzon. He's a guy that I really like from the Bruins. I don't know.
I'm just gonna shout this out right now. I have not been a fan of what I've seen of Lauzon. There's always players on whatever teams that I've watched. There'll be these guys that I just find like for on the Blackhawks, it's Riley Stillman. Like, I can't stand the guy. I don't I every time he's on the ice, he's digging the puck out of his own net, or he's falling down, or he's turning it over. And I've kind of felt that way with Lauzon. But go ahead.
I mean, he showed a lot with the Bruins, I feel like, from what I saw from him. So I think there's some potential there if he's put in the right position to succeed, on top of finding the right pair for him. Like you said, he's really struggled with the Kraken early on, but it could be a chemistry thing. You never know. People start coming back from injury. The line keeps the lines keep changing. Injuries happen. He gets bumped up the lineup and maybe finds some success higher up in the lineup or with a different pair. Who knows what happens? But personally, I think he was kind of buried on the Bruins for a little while, wasn't really given that opportunity. I see Lauzon as a guy who could be a really solid number 3, number 4 defenseman, like a middle pair guy at some point if he can sort of develop that chemistry with the coaching staff and also with his line mates. William Borgen's another guy that could be a really solid depth defenseman, number 4, number 5 defenseman for the Kraken if things go his way. He was another guy that kind of got hit with the Buffalo effect where, everyone kind of sucks when they're on Buffalo, and he was one of those guys. So maybe he can break through for the Kraken. It'll go a long way if he does, because one of the strong suits for Seattle is their defense, their defensive core. So if they can get even more out of those depth guys like Lauzon and Borgen, it would go a long way. And personally, like I said, I was a fan of Lauzon's game when he was with Boston. Borgen, again, it's kind of tough to judge him based on the team that he played for last. So
yeah.
I think he still has potential. He's young. He could be a second pair guy with Lauzon for the future in Seattle, maybe if things go their way. But yeah, they have a lot of exciting guys on their roster currently, and a lot of promise based on past history and all that. So I like the makeup of the roster for sure.
I suggest you let that one marinate.
All right. Now, like I said, I'm leaving it all so we could go out on a high note here with all this stuff. Now, I know they don't have a lot of I know they don't have a lot of prospects because obviously, they've only had one draft. They have only signed so many players that they concentrated on this year more than they did, going forward and stuff. But
Thank you for inviting us into the circle of trust.
So let's talk a little bit about prospects in the future. And we are going to have a question too at the end. We actually have a couple of questions. But let's look at their prospects that they have in the system. And I'm going to say prospects that aren't going to, maybe could be playing AHL, but AHL and below. Guys you're not going to see probably this year, but you're going to see in the coming years and may be, what this team, the identity of this team going forward possibly. And I guess we should start right on the top. Matty Beniers. What do you think?
So Matty Beniers is, I was early on the Matty Beniers hype train in the 21 class. I remember right when scouting sort of took off, when the Michigan season first started, I watched their first game, and I turned that game on with the full intent to watch Kent Johnson and Owen Power. Those are the two guys that I was really paying attention to in that first game. I had no intention of scouting Matt Beniers just yet. He was a guy that pretty consistently across the board was just inside a lot of people's top 20s for preseason rankings. And I really wanted to focus on some of like the top 10 guys, and Power and Kent Johnson were those guys. So I went in with a full intent of just watching solely those two players, tracking their analytics, and going from there. Ultimately, I came out of that game super high on Matt Beniers. I went right to some of my fellow scouts. I know Gabe Foley. Not sure where he's working. I think it's FC Hockey now. He's been moving up quite fast. But I know Gabe Foley. I worked with him a lot for the 21 class. I went right to him and I said, Gabe, block it in. Matt Beniers is going to be a stud this year. Mark my words. And I showed him the analytics that I gathered. Granted, it was one game with Michigan, but he was so unbelievably impressive in that first game. He was driving all of the play, all of it. The transitional game, it was all on him for Michigan. Kent Johnson was kind of just observing through the neutral zone. When it came to offensive zone play, he was the one setting up Kent Johnson almost throughout the entire season. Kent Johnson is a flashy player. He's really talented in his own right, but Matt Beniers was really setting up a lot of his chances throughout the entirety of the season. He's a guy that if it doesn't matter who you put on a line with him, he's going to make the guys around him twice as good as they would without him. He's just one of those players that makes everyone around him so much better. He just has that impact. His transitional play is outstanding. It really is. His offensive zone play is not flashy by any means, but he gets the job. He gets the job done. He thinks the play at such a high level that he will already know what he's going to do about 10 steps before he has to do it. He analyzes the play so well. His anticipation is ridiculous. And I haven't even started talking about the best part of his game is in the defensive zone. He's just so much smarter than everybody else. He reads the play so much faster than everyone else. His skating ability is very technically sound, though I wouldn't consider him like a fantastic skater yet, but his technical ability is so sound that any skating coach is going to take that and mold him into a really, really good skater in a very short amount of time. Excuse me. So Matt Beniers is a guy that the Kraken, he's going to be their number one center in just a matter of time. It's going to happen sooner rather than later. It could even happen. He might not be the number one center right away, but it could happen as soon as the NCAA season's over. You look at guys like Charlie McAvoy. It happened for him with the Bruins, and his first taste of NHL action happened in the playoffs in the first round against the Ottawa Senators back in, I believe it was 2017 or 2016. So, he could kind of have that impact if the Kraken make the playoffs or right towards the end of the season. When the NCAA season's over and he has the chance to come up to the NHL, he absolutely will. I think he's going to make that quick of an impact for the Kraken that as soon as next season he could be in their top 6. He's that good. I absolutely love Matty Beniers.
And that's the thing with the Kraken is they don't have any dynamic centers. They have Yanni Gourde, who's good. They have a couple of centers on the roster who are actually, good players, good, solid players. Alex Wenberg. Who else could play center on here? You got Riley Sheehan. I mean, he's a bottom 6 guy, but Ryan Donato can also play center. Mason Appleton can play center. According to this, Barbalay can play center.
Yep.
And then you have Morgan Geekie. You have a lot of guys like in that middle section, but you don't have a dynamic guy that's, and I don't want to compare him to this, but a lot of what you're saying gives me like a Jonathan Taves type feel.
Yeah.
But are there any other NHL comparables you have for Matty Beniers?
So for me, I did a big piece on Matty Beniers about a year and a half ago now, I want to say, at this rate, where I broke down his game and I looked at Patrice Bergeron, I looked at Ryan O'Reilly, Alexander Barkov, and he has bits and pieces of all of their games when it comes to defensive zone ability. And offensively, he's just dynamic. And I don't know if he'll turn out to be like a Bergeron or a Ryan O'Reilly or an Alexander Barkov or any of those guys. But, he falls into that category of potentially, if things, again, let me go back here. If everything goes well in his development, he could easily fall into that category of future Selke Trophy winner. with the Bergerons, the Couturiers, and the Barkovs, he's that good. I would compare him to any one of those players. I wouldn't compare him totally to their game because those are like high level players.
Yeah, those are top end guys.
Yeah, but he plays the game very, very similarly to those guys, especially when it comes to his defensive zone impact. He's just that good.
Yeah,
playing
I'm
hockey.
a big Ryan O'Reilly fan. I'm a huge Ryan O'Reilly fan. So like if they could get a player like that, that would be wonderful. But I guess we're gonna see. We're gonna see what it's gonna be like when he's playing against the big boys. He's not playing in college where they all got cages on and they're all a couple steps slower. Everyone's gonna be as fast as he is. In the NHL. So
Yeah,
we shall see. Going down the line, I mean, we could look at. I'm pulling up my drafts that they pulled up. There's Ryker Evans. There's Ryan Witherton. There's Ville Adavainen, Jacob Melanson, and then the goalie I talked about, which he's actually 6th rounder, is Semyon Vizavial and Justin Janicki. So those are like some of the players that they drafted this year. Give me what you got here on, I mean, you don't have to go through every single one of them, but give me some highlights of some of these guys.
Ryker Evans. So he's the 2nd round pick. He's again, he kind of falls in line with a Yanni Gourde-esque player. He plays with a little bit of an edge. His work ethic pops off the page. He's really good in the defensive zone, both ways, really. He's good in all 3 zones. I think the biggest thing where his value lies is his defensive zone abilities. I think that's where his value will kind of show up the most. He's a guy that I project to be like a middle 6 center winger, depending on which way he decides. Or sorry, he's a defenseman.
Yeah.
He's a guy that I project to be like a middle pair defenseman. I apologize again.
No, that's fine. I misspeak all the time. Don't worry about it.
I have my notes up. I have his position next to him. I just started. But yeah, no, his defensive game is like the part of his game that really stands out. He's just really good at shutting down the opposition. His offensive game, obviously, it's inconsistent, but he's still solid in the offensive zone. He just needs to figure out how to put it all together. But again, really good transitionally, really good in the defensive zone. He's a guy that really pans out like a middle pair, bottom pair defenseman with real shutdown abilities. And if he's paired with an offensive defenseman similar to Mark Giordano, that could really, give him the most potential and make him an even better defenseman. But it all comes down to his line mate. But he has a real future ahead of him.
Yeah. Now I didn't even bring this up before, but one of our staff writers here on the rink works for FC Hockey. So he's an FC Hockey guy. And we all went out and got our FC Hockey draft guides and all that stuff. So I put a whole piece together with all of clips and bits and pieces of what they said on FC Hockey and a couple of things they said. It says it plays with an elite level of poise and commands the ice. He's got great athleticism to his game and is an efficient, more notably deceptive skater, and then also a very smart power play quarterback, which is something the Kraken are going to need, a power play quarterback at some point in time. Makes accurate passes side to side and stuff like that. So I think maybe, they got him in the second or early in the second round. He could have been a 1st round player possibly if things go a little bit different.
Yeah, he's a smart offensive player. I think what he needs to do is he needs to kind of get out of his shell a little bit in the offensive zone and kind of push the pace a little bit more. That's not really his strong suit. Like I said, he's more of a shutdown guy. But if he opens up his game a little bit more, he's very smart in the offensive zone. Like you said, he easily could be a power play quarterback, setting up Matty Beniers potentially along the half wall, depending on how things work out. But
there you go.
Yeah, I think, again, he just needs to shoot more. That's definitely one of the main things. He needs to shoot the puck more, have a little bit more confidence there. But yeah, his offensive game, there's definitely a base for it. It's just a matter of building up on that, gaining a little bit more confidence. And I think that comes with age. So I'm confident in Ryker Evans' ability to be an NHLer one day if all things go well. So
cool. Well, this is where I can actually step into the questions just a bit because the question is relevant to where we're at. Sergeant Pickles, who always sends in questions, and thank you, Sergeant Pickles. He's spickles13 on Twitter. He asked, are any prospects besides Beniers and Ryker who look like they might have a shot at the team next year? So what do you think?
I don't.
The pause says no, but
Yeah, I don't see it per se. Maybe Jacob Melanson, if things go well, he has the pro level size, and he plays a physical game, strong net front presence. Maybe next year, if again things go really really well, he could crack the roster and as a fourth line guy. But that's even a shot in the dark.
Yeah, they got a lot of fourth line and fourth line players.
I mean, that was kind of just how the 2021 class shaped out to be. A lot of it was a deep draft, a lot of depth players. Not a real outside of the first, I would say 15 or so picks. There weren't really a whole lot of high end future top line guys. But Ryan Winterton's another guy that plays very physical. Maybe he's a solid skater. He's just a solid all-around player. Maybe he can make the roster next year. That's a little bit of a long shot in a sense. I want to be confident in the group that they have because a lot of them are fairly projectable in a depth role like you mentioned. But I don't really see anyone as soon as next year other than Evans. Even I'm not 100% sure if he'll be there next year, but outside of Beniers, really it's kind of tough to say definitively. I don't know. I don't really see it.
Boom, nailed it.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, like I said, we don't have to get into everyone, but we did get another question from Mike McCracken, South City Mike. He's always good, and he's always forwarding tweets and stuff to me. So I want to get in there, and this prospect actually kind of intrigues me a little bit. When do you think Ville Adavainen might come here to play? Now, a little background: he's 6'5", 221. He's a big boy. So, what do you think about Ville Adavainen?
So Adavainen's a guy that really intrigues me too. Big body, like you mentioned. He's a big kid. He's playing in Liga right now, which is the top Finnish league. And I think that's a good spot for him for this season. The biggest concern I have is he had a season in North America. Of course, I didn't put what team he played on, but he played in the CHL for one season, and his strong suit really is his defensive zone ability and his physical presence on the ice. And he showed that in Finland against guys his age. He's even shown it a little bit at the top men's league. But when he came over to the CHL, his defensive zone game struggled. You would think the rinks get smaller. It's easier to play defense in that sense because it's a lot less room to kind of account for. But it's actually kind of difficult to make that transition for European defensemen, and you can see it when looking at a lot of European defensemen. Rasmus Dahlin is one of them, making the transition to North American ice. Granted, at the NHL level, but still, he struggled early on. So you see that a lot with European defenders, and it's because when it's tighter spaces, in North America, a lot of the guys are really good skaters. And for Adavainen, he's a bigger guy. He's not as fast as those guys. And even though it's a smaller ice surface, there's different angles. There's a lot more that you have to account for with how tight you are to certain players. You have to account for gap control and stuff like that. And it seemed like he really, really struggled defensively in the smaller ice surface in the CHL. And I looked around at various sites, and a lot of them said the same thing. He flashes offensive potential. His defensive ability, like I said, in Europe is really solid. But in my opinion, I saw that question, so I specifically wrote in my notes what I thought and how long it could take. I think the hope is he can come over to the AHL next season to play for the Kraken AHL team. It could take him, based on the struggle that he had in the CHL, it could take him at least 2, maybe 3 AHL seasons to really develop his defensive game and get acclimated to the smaller ice. So he's more of like a project, in my opinion. He's got the size, he's got the strength. There's no worry about that. But his offensive zone consistency and also his defensive zone struggles in the one season he played in North America really kind of holds me back from being sure about how well he can translate to the NHL level. So if I were to guess, I'd probably say 4 or so years, maybe 5.
Yeah, the Kitchener Rangers, that was the team you were looking for. That's what he played for in the OHL. He had 4 goals, 11 assists, 15 points in 53 games. So, yeah, that was that. Yeah, I would say that even if he stayed another year in Europe, I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily going to hurt him. He's not only 19, so if he stays another year in Europe, I mean, he was drafted 99th overall, which is like 4th round. That 4th round? Yeah, I think it is 4th round. Yeah. So it's like 4th round guys don't generally, work their way up the depth chart very quickly. So just let them simmer, let them marinate, and let's not rush them.
Yeah, and you don't want to rush him at all. But again, with the whole thing with his struggling in the CHL, I would feel that they want to bring him over to the AHL sooner rather than later, so that he can grow acclimated to the smaller ice. So if he stays in Europe, I don't. That's definitely not going to hurt his game at all. Maybe even give him more confidence. But I feel like the Kraken should try to get him to at least the AHL as soon as they really can, so he can grow used to the smaller rinks.
Cool. So yeah, that's what we have as far as the draft picks. There's not really anyone else in the system, so we don't really have one, outside of the draft picks, we don't really have much more to talk about as far as that goes. So
I did want to mention Justin Janicki,
sure,
the 7th round pick. So believe
National
it or not,
developmental program guy.
Yeah. So believe it or not, I actually had him ranked, I believe in my 2nd round or early 3rd round.
Wow.
For the 21 class, if I can pull that up. I have his analytics that I gathered, so his transitional abilities.
Yeah.
So I tracked 3 games, if I'm not mistaken, if it'll load. Yeah, 3 games. He had a 60% controlled exit percentage, so he broke out of the defensive zone with possession 60% of the time. The average was 59%, so above average among USHL guys. In the offensive zone, he entered the offensive zone with possession on 83.33% of his opportunities. That ranked 2nd behind only Matty Beniers. The average was 57%. And he's just one of those guys that he plays with a lot of speed. He's a very good offensive zone player. One of the guys that I personally really, really liked. I think he's a real player. I was shocked to see him fall as far as he did. I was a big Janicki fan. And like I said, I'm focusing on the USHL this year, so I did have a focus on them more so than other leagues last year. And the more I watched Justin Janicki, the more I liked him. He's just really fast, really offensive-minded. He's got a lot of raw skill, so he's definitely a project. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he's going to just break out and make the Kraken within the next couple of seasons. But he definitely has a lot of potential. I think a lot of teams kind of overlooked that in a sense. So,
a lot of teams, because he's like 195th overall.
Yeah, I think he's one of the real steals for the Kraken in this draft class. One of the guys
that'd be cool to have.
Yeah,
that.
I'm a big fan.
You mentioned the USHL. I mean, we have the luxury of having the Chicago Steel here in Chicago. So
yeah,
I actually watched Owen Power for that entire season because we covered the Steel that season, and the kid was 15 years old and he was dominating the USHL, and it was ridiculous. And he's way bigger than everybody else. And he was 15 years old against these kids that are 17 years old. It was craziness. So I was glad to see him work his way up and get picked 1st overall. So hopefully he doesn't die a slow death in Buffalo, but we'll see.
That's a big if.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of wraps it up for prospects and stuff. I think we can kind of wrap it up. You got anything else you want to? Any other guys you want to point out or spotlight?
No, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Yeah.
Fair. Cool. All right. Well, why don't you give everyone your last plugs, where they can find you and all that other stuff.
You can find me on Twitter at Pereira_report. I am going to be posting a lot with the 2022 class, clips of prospects. I don't post a whole lot of those, but I do on occasion put them out there, and I do a lot of in-depth scouting reports that I post to Twitter for Last Word on Sports. You can also find me on Last Word on Sports. You can just Google my name, Kyle Pereira. It's spelled out on the screen. One of the first links there is Last Word on Hockey, and you can see the list of articles that I put out there. I've been doing a lot of player development research, and you can find all of that on my Twitter account as well as on Last Word on Hockey. I have a pretty extensive series of reports on my player development research, and if you're interested in that, there's a bunch that you can read through. If you want to read up on Matty Beniers, I put out a couple posts on him actually throughout the year last year. So if you want to scroll all the way down, take the time to scroll all the way down out of interest for Matty Beniers, then feel free. Like I said, there's a lot of content on him on my account for Last Words. So
yeah, I think I might tweet out some of those links to those Matty Beniers pieces tomorrow.
I appreciate it
when this comes up. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, nice talking with you, Cap. See you around.
Cool. I don't really have any big plugs, other than I'm going to be playing in the All-State Arena this weekend, and I'm a little bit freaked out by that. It's just for a charity thing, but I've never played in an arena that big, so it's going to be kind of crazy. I'm gonna learn all about how to track a puck in an extra large arena. So that'll be fun. But other than that, I really don't have any last plugs. We're going to actually get a whole bunch of other podcast guests, so some new stuff. Some of the other Kraken blogs and stuff like that, I'm going to have them come back on again like we did with Brandon Seeley before. But you can find all of my comprehensive content on www.the-rink.com. That's where I get, I have my anchor points that I put just every day, the little bits and pieces, and then I've been recapping every game. We're going to have Dave Perks. He's going to come on and at some point, and he's going to start his beginners, kind of learning hockey and be, with a new fan base and stuff. These are going to be kind of some perspective pieces. You can find us on all the social medias at The Rink Official, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. That's at The Rink Official. You can also search for us. If you go to our website, you can actually get to our channel for YouTube. We don't have one of the fancy names yet. So if you go over there and you subscribe, the more subscribers you get, the chance you get that little fancy custom URL. So we would appreciate if you go over to the YouTube page and subscribe. We do a lot of cool stuff. If I have a little bit of downtime, I actually do put prospect pieces together where I gather a bunch of film and stuff and kind of throw it to some music so that people can get some kind of an idea. Fortunately, I've been so busy right now, I haven't been able to do that, but you can watch some of the old Blackhawks ones and stuff. At the Rink Chicago, at the Rink Colorado, or it's at the Rink Shy, at the Rink Colorado, at the Rink Seattle is where all my work is done and all the Seattle Kraken stuff. At Kraken Hostel is just for the podcast, so that's where I do the questions and we release all the podcast stuff. At the Rinkcast is the Chicago Rinkcast, and I am at Puckett Hostel on the interwebs. If you see me arguing with people on the internet, you'll know why. It's Puckett Hostel, but right now I'm trying to just calm people down. Calm down, everybody. If you get a chance, head over to iTunes, rate and review us. I really, really would appreciate that. And again, like I said, subscribe to the YouTube page. You can like our Facebook page. We appreciate that too. We post all of our stuff up there. You can talk on there. We actually have forums on our website where you can actually comment on the articles and banter back and forth. And usually we'll jump in too. So if you agree with us or you disagree with us, at least try to be nice if you disagree with us. But if you disagree with us, I'll jump right back in and I'll answer whatever you got, or I'll debate with you if you want to debate. So we're all trying to get, this winning new organization. So I guess, with all that, here we are, we're at an hour. So, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules to download, listen, or watch us and support us. Until next episode, see you on the rink.